We wanted to make some game festivals, so lots of little short games that you could come along and play. And the first one we did was This Is a Door at Theatre Works, which is a theatre venue, which is an old cinema. So like it's an old church.
Cinema.
Sorry, it's an old church. So they can pull back all the seats and basically it's a big black empty hall. And the very first year we ran it, we got a bunch of publicity for it, but people were coming along to Theatre Works, and
it was part of the Selected Works program, which is A, why we got publicity, but B, also we should mention it so that because we were supported by them.
Yes. So. Yeah. So their Selected Works are the ones that they bring in and help support. And the interesting thing was that because it was at Theatre Works and it was the first one that we'd done, Theatre Works has this tiny little sort of corridor. So you come in and you come around the corridor and then you come around the corner and then you can see the space. And so people would come around and then you'd see them like stop, and because there were no seats, there was no set, we had bunting and we had lots of little different areas where you could play different games, and we had like a circle of game runners all welcoming people in. And so people would falter to a halt because they were expecting a theatre show, and this totally wasn't a theatre show, and they weren't sure what it was, which I always thought was interesting.
We sort of put it together. I'd worked with Theatre Works before. I've done shows at Theatre Works, and I went to Dan Clark, who'd just taken over as artistic director there. And one of the reasons why we'd already done a couple of things. We'd done the NGV, we'd done a werewolf game at Comedy Festival, and This Is Door was the next thing we did. And I not only was it important to just kind of to introduce the company to the world, but also the whole reason was called This Is a Door. For two reasons, actually. There was a game we had called This Is a Door that had a door in the middle of it, and you had to move through.
Which wasn't in the festival.
Because we couldn't fit the door in the truck
van
to get it there.
Small company problems. We couldn't fit the door into the van with all the other props, so we left it.
Yeah. So, but the other reason was because This Is a Door was designed to introduce Melbourne to the idea of games as a cultural performance. We've been wanting from the beginning to make really big, immersive kind of gameplay events that you can walk into entire worlds that have been constructed around you and experience play in those kind of other worlds. And that's was completely new to Melbourne and realistically to Australia 5 years ago. And instead of launching straight into that, which would have been difficult because it costs so much money and there needs to be so much support, instead, and also needs an audience to be able to come to it, to keep it alive. We could probably, with enough money, you could just build it. But if the audience isn't there and doesn't understand the work, disappears, right? So a lot of the first couple of years of the company were about introducing Melbourne and Australia to the notion of games and play as a cultural form. We come up against, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, we particularly as live game designers come up against the notion that games and play is for children.
Yeah. Which in fact, it's still now, like you tell people, we make games for a living. Kids games. No. Like first video games and then kids games is what people, and then when you say adult games, it all starts getting a bit, 18 plus.
So we, This Is a Door was constructed of a range of small games, nothing that lasted more than 20 minutes, most games that lasted 5 to 10 minutes, that were about creating social situations and storytelling moments, etc., and creating kind of theatricalized moments using theatrical lighting and effects, smoke machines, etc., to give you a glimpse of how game systems and gameplay and participation can create a world that you can actually physically walk into.
Yeah.
And subsequent to that, it was very popular. Like it was actually, we were surprised at how much response we got by it because it was shared a lot on Twitter and the social media. People got lots of good photos out of it, of each other playing and wanted to share that and then continue to play it online.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So we set up like a Facebook page and stuff fairly early on, and the awesome thing that we would wake up to is that people were still playing the game from the night before on Facebook or on our Facebook page, and it would last for weeks. And so we just watch these people like keep playing for ages from this thing that we had like presented to them. Yeah,
which is a kind of incredible participatory storytelling thing that each individual game can shoot off these little tiny sort of mini communities of people who exist in this little world that they only share. It's kind of like tiny little, very quick, short role-playing sessions that they continue playing on their own, which is really interesting that lots of little worlds split off from the one event.
Yeah. Which we love too, because clearly we were capturing their imagination and capturing something that they would keep.
I would argue capturing. I would argue more
engaging their imagination.
Well, freeing, really.
Yeah.
A lot of what we do, particularly the work with grown-ups, is about allowing them the space to play, giving them permission to play, or creating situations that excuse play, because grown-ups feel like they need an excuse to play, and that's why goals are really important. That's why winning and trophies and all of that stuff is important, because it's an excuse to play. I don't think, not entirely convinced that winning the trophy is the thing that is important in that play experience. I think the flow they get from play is actually the thing that makes them feel good, but it's rationalized by the trophy at the end.
Yeah.